Welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lounatics, as we come in to focus on an exciting new breaking news, which isn't really breaking news at this point when this episode posts, but going to get our thoughts on everything going on with St. Louis City as we head into and get closer to the Leagues Cup break. I'm your host, Tyler, along with my friend and co-host, John. John, where do you want to start? Carnell?
Yeah, always start, I think, with the bad news. I think we're talking about turning a page over and starting new. Funnily enough, Tyler is pouring a second drink tonight. This is actually the second episode we've recorded tonight, but it will be the one that you hear first. He is, as you will find out in a few days when that episode posts, he is still drinking whiskey and I am still drinking water. But you know this before that one. So congratulations, you are now a time traveler. But yeah, I think starting with the bad news. So yesterday morning, I think we were both caught off guard, as I think a lot of people were, with the news that City had, terminated Bradley Carnell's contract as head coach. And it definitely took me by surprise, and I get why they did it, but it doesn't make it less shocking, or I guess it still feels weird to me.
As I just said to our friend Carrie offline after we ended the episode, which was, I understand why they did it, but it doesn't make me like it anymore. And first I want to focus on the positives, right? And everything Carnell was for this team, for this city. He came on. People told him not to take the job because it's an expansion club, like you're doomed for failure. He came in, he really pushed against the grain and helped this team rise up to be more than the sum of its parts last year. The flip side of that is he was not able to recapture that magic really after the Leagues Cup break last year into this year. But he's been such a great ambassador for our city. He's been a great ambassador for soccer. And I mean, he's really integrated himself so much into everything going on here in St. Louis. It's a tough loss for me because he's somebody as a person that I just absolutely adore.
Yeah, I mean, did you watch his exit interview that he did? Not really an exit interview, but the interview he did with KSDK.
Yeah. Lindsay and I watched it this evening.
Yeah, I watched it too, and I left it just being just struck by how amazing of a person he is. He's going to get other opportunities. He's a phenomenal person, and people who are good people, they get opportunities. On top of the fact that he has some reasonable success, even if it didn't really go his way this year. So to kind of recap, during the press conference yesterday, Diego and Lutz basically said, we're 20 games into this season. The results have not been what we wanted it to be. You can take that stretch of poor form even back into last season, as you said earlier, since Leagues Cup last year roundabout. Lutz pointed out that we have dropped let's say that there were a lot of draws earlier this year. I think you and I counted there were 16 points dropped from winning positions this year. Mm-hmm. We have won, I think I saw 8 of our last 40 games is what I saw Taylor Twellman tweet out. So that's a little bit more than a season of worth of games, only winning 8 times. And we are currently at a point in the season where we have had quite a few injuries, especially over the last 2 months. But this club clearly prides itself and sees itself as being an ambitious team, a team that's always going to be competitive. And that means making the playoffs. And at this point in the season, it's kind of the trajectory has to change now to make the playoffs this year. And that's kind of how they came to that decision right now. What did you think? Were you able to watch the press conference yesterday?
I was lucky for me. It was at the time of the press conference, I was the only person in the pharmacy. And so I turned it on, was listening to it while I was working. So probably didn't pay as close attention as some people, but definitely got a good bit of what there was going on. And there was a lot of, I think the most, to tell you how torn they were on getting what to do with BC right now, I think the question of, hey, if you had won the game, if the Real Salt Lake game had been a win, if you guys didn't lose that game, would he still be getting fired today? And it was, Lutz was flat out said no. If we had won that game, he wouldn't be getting fired today.
Right. And I know a lot of people took a problem with that one game should not decide your outcome, but it wasn't one game. And I think it was also the manner and how that game was lost, right?
Yes, you and I've talked about this some, and like I said, it's he was on the line, right? And then that's just it. That was the tipping point. It's you're sitting here. It's where do I go? That game was it's time, and it's because of how that game was played and how that game was lost. You and I talked about I mean, how many times have we brought up the subs and how we don't always agree with how he manages or utilizes subs on the field, and I think that has a huge factor into this.
Yeah. Well, even looking at that Vancouver games lineup, right? So let me ask you this, okay? If you were to like prioritize center back depth, right? Okay. So we know our top 5 are unavailable, right? Nielsen's out. Parker is a maybe, but out, basically. Yarrow has a concussion. Hebert's playing with the national team. Vincel is out of short-term loans. We'll say that Jake Nerwinski is 6th because he has the most experience at center back other than that and plays, fullback regularly, which is not exactly the same, but close. And who would you say then is behind Jake Nerwinski or at about that same level?
Blom. Durkin.
Exactly.
But Blom would be my first.
Right. But that's not who lined up. It was Marcanic. And I will say, I felt like Marcanic played a better game than Jake, at least defensively. Yep. Coach did not agree, apparently, because he took Marcanic out and left Jake in the game. The same thing happened.
Was gassed, though. I think that had more to do with. I think that had more to do with Marcanic looked. I mean, a few minutes before he came out, there was a play like near a sideline, and they did a close up on him during the game. I mean, Marcanic was visibly struggling to catch his breath. He was absolutely gassed. So I think that's why Marcanic came out of that game.
Huh. I must have missed that, but either way, he's not who you would have picked as your first choice backup center back, or sixth choice backup center back, really. And I mean, Durkin and Blom were not both on the field at the same time, so you could have run one of them there, and like that's just a weird decision. Like this is do or die mode at this point of the season. Like you have to put all your best available people out every time, and you and I both love Marcanic as a person. I think we've both said some of our frustrations with him as a left back, even though I think we've also done a really good job of calling out when he's played well. I think we've been very fair in our analysis of him, and I want to see both him and Jake get all the opportunities they can, but also like we got to win. Like we're below the playoff line. We need points.
Yeah, I remember looking at the lineup and just questioning all the way through, like, what the heck is going on? And, you and I talked about offline with our friend Tyler about, like, what kind of a walkthrough does somebody wind up with a concussion?
Right. And that's not even the only injury that's
especially
happened.
when you have you're so short on center back depth already. What kind of walkthrough do you even give any kind of opportunity for one of your center backs to get hurt in any kind of way?
And that was just the latest in a long string of injuries that occurred in training, which like happens, right? People get hurt in practice all the time. If you read the amazing article that The Athletic published last year about the complete meltdown that was Toronto last year, one of the things they talked about was that, the Italian players that played for Toronto did not really like the way the practices were being run, because in MLS they tend to be very intense, very physical practices, whereas in Europe they tend to be more, at least in Italy, they tend to be more tactical and like, this is what we're going to do. Here's our plan. Okay, this happens. Now what do you do, etc. after that? And I don't think that practice structure is necessarily the reason that Bradley Carnell was fired or anything like that. But it makes me wonder, when we had all those comments earlier in the year about Sam Adeniran and how hard he was playing, how hard he was practicing, if maybe he wasn't, saying like, I think we're pushing too hard in practice and, trying to like have that conversation. And clearly it did not go well between him and Carnell. But like on the first day Carnell is gone, Adeniran is back in practice. And I think that is very, maybe not telling, but it's at least saying that they are aware that the issue was between them, and that they are willing to give Sam a fresh start, or an attempt at a fresh start, before they move on completely.
And realistically, I mean, we need the striker. We need a solid striker right now. And not to take any, I mean, Thorson, I feel like, had his best game he's had all year.
He's had two really good games in a row.
Yeah, and finally getting some minutes and the opportunity to shine, and not just coming on for 15 minutes to try to get his way into the game. But, I think about, where does that leave him if Sam takes off and things? And Sam is an animal. He's got a nose for the goal when he's on it, when his mind is right, and when he's playing hard. And so maybe something like this does unlock it. I also think that playing a pressing style, you almost have to have slightly more intense practices just for the fitness level component of it, if that makes sense. I don't think you don't have that option to just go around and say, hey, we're going to do tactical, whatever. And there's just a different level of fitness that has to be there to be able to play a high press.
Right. Like you hear about it all the time with Pochettino, and I think Klopp had a very similar one, right? Like that they, not only had the tactical components, but that they had these very, very intense practices, because you need it to press as intensely as this style requires. And I think that makes sense. But at the same time, too, the counterpoint, and I think that this is a very real criticism that many people have had on Carnell, is that we seem to continually struggle to create good scoring opportunities. And that is a tactical thing. And, these guys have played soccer their whole lives. Many of them have played either in MLS before coming here, or in Europe, and first division leagues. And it's like, okay, why are we continuously trying to take the ball to the corner of the 18-yard box instead of taking it in front of goal? You know what I mean? Like, why are we continuously trying to take these awkward shots? And, you can't tell me that they don't know that they have a better chance centrally. And that's just like one example, right? Like, if that's, it's one thing.
I mean, but that is like playing soccer growing up. I mean, that's something that you're coached to do, is take the ball to the end line and turn up the end line towards the goal and wait for somebody to crash to lay off to. So right, that is a valid tactic.
That's what I'm saying. But they're not laying off. They're taking the shot. So like that's what I'm issue. Getting at. Yeah. Is like, okay, if you're going to take the shot, why are you not taking it centrally? Is what I'm getting at. Like, it obviously, like, creating that space, pulling the defender out with you, and then getting that pass back. We don't do that ever.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we turn the corner, and as soon as we turn the corner, we're taking these. I mean, Sam scored in the NYCFC game, right? That you and I were at.
Perfect example. Yeah.
And it's like, Klaus was crashing hard. All he had to do was tap it across, and Klaus could have tapped it in. And instead, he got lucky when he hammered it home. It beat the goalie, because had it not, I mean, people would have had Sam's head over that.
Right. Well, it was a phenomenally well taken goal.
And the goalie didn't play it super well either. He kind of, he didn't take the near post away. So Sam hammered it past him near post, because he didn't take a proper angle also. So, I mean, here and there, I mean, like it worked out in Sam's favor, it worked out in City's favor, but it's that same, but what I'm saying is it's that type of thing, right? The only player that I can think of that we had that really did a great job of getting to the end line and then looking for the pass when he was crashing in. And I guess Indy does that a lot of the time. He doesn't always just rip shots from there.
Yeah.
Celio was the other one. And we're not going to see him till this time next year if we're lucky.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think Alm kind of does that.
No, Alm does do that too. He doesn't crash in as hard. He tends to send
not like Celio. Yeah. He stays out wide and sends in the cross, whereas Celio tries to crash in, tries to get people to actually close on him, and then get that pass out.
And then lays it off, yeah.
Right. And I think
and it's
Kojima...
that creativity.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, like, I think Kojima does a really good job of trying to send a pass forward through the back line for people to run onto. I think we've seen that very well since he moved to the 10. But yeah, and then, you look back at the subs and, like, last year we used all of our subs like every game, and this year I don't feel like we've done that as much. And like, okay, so you're going to try to keep the best players out there longer, sure, but then like when people have been subbed, I feel like you and I are like messaging each other and we're like, okay, that sub came 5 to 10 minutes too late, or it's like, why are you making this sub when there's like someone else who like clearly needs to be subbed out? Like, you can see how gassed they are, you can see that they're getting bad touches, they're not getting to the second ball anymore. Like, all of these, I think, are valid criticisms. And, if this is a club that has aspirations to be a global name in the sport, like, all the results we've had over the last 12 months would not fly at any big club. Like the manager would be gone after this type of result, despite the injuries.
Yeah. And that's why I say I understand where it comes from, but it doesn't make me happy that it's coming. Because I do like Carnell. Which sub or which player coming on confused you the most? Because pretty obvious for me which was the most confusing player that came on. And we only subbed, 2 players on in that game?
In Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
We brought on Blom, and then we brought on late.
No, Blom started the game because he had the first goal. Blom and Durkin were on the field at the same time because they played the double pivot.
Yes,
and we had Leuven playing at the 10 because you said that earlier, and I was like, "That's not right." But
You're
I'm
right.
not going to get into it right now.
I forgot all about Blom's goal. Because
in my mind, I would have put Blom at center back. I would have put Leuven and Durkin as the double pivot, and I would have put Kojima at the 10. Now,
same. Now, 3 games in 8 days, like that could be part of it too. But like,
yeah, but and Leuven had a phenomenal game, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
At the 10, I mean, like, I thought he looked really good on the ball, but he always does. But yeah, so we had 2 subs. We had Kojima, who came on for Blom. Do you know who came on from Organic?
Glover, wasn't it?
Yeah. What are you like? And I like Caden Glover, but he is not ready for MLS.
I don't know. I had no feelings either way about it. I feel like you had to do, I get bringing on more attacking subs. You're trying to get that goal, salvage the draw. Like, I get it. You don't really have a lot of people available. Sure.
He had McSorley made more sense to me there, personally.
Yeah. Well, and it could also be, and these are the things that we'll never know, is like, are you planning on giving McSorley a start this week, right? Like, is he on the roster in case of an emergency? But since you only get him one more time, are you planning on getting like a full 90 out of him or something, right? Yeah. And those are the things that we'll never know. Like, same thing with Reed, right? Like you could make the case, why didn't Reed start? Well, I think Reed didn't start because you want to see what he looks like standing next to Parker and Berkey again, not next to Markanek and Darwinski.
Yeah.
And Lund.
Yeah. And then that's another thing. Parker's listed as a sub, right? He traveled with the team. He's listed as a sub. I know he had a groin injury, but if he wasn't able to come on some point in the second half to help you hold a lead, why the hell was he on your bench?
Right. And saying all of this stuff, I think makes it kind of makes it feel like we're piling on, Coach. But I think the reason why we're talking about these things is because we want to point out all the reasons why the move makes sense, even if it makes us unhappy because we like him as a person and what he stands for.
And I thought he pulled a lot of the right strings early at the beginning of last season.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean,
but you and I have, like I said, for us right now, I mean, this is no different than us, looking at, okay, what subs did he make, or why would you do this in any game? And we've done this, I mean, since
quite a bit.
beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done it since City started playing. You and I message even prior to the podcast that we started, right? It's, hey, I would not have done that there. I think we should have done this 5 or 10 minutes sooner, or whatever, right? So this isn't new for us. What I really, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, it's because they really focused on the AZ and the Sam and this, that, and the other. And it was like, I don't think that truly played into this directly. I think it could have been a piece of it, but there's people I think out there that think that the Sam situation is one of the overarching like big things for this, and I'm like, I don't think that's it at all.
Yeah, I think it's the results.
I think it's the results, because if him and Sam had a tiff and the team was still winning, nobody's going to care. Winning cures all.
Right. Well, not only that, but like it's been 2 weeks since AZ was traded. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, you think they didn't already have an idea that they were looking at possibly firing Carnell? And if you're thinking that you might possibly fire Carnell, you're not getting rid of a guy like AZ if you think like Lutz has to be kind of done having him too, right? Lutz has seen enough that, he is not a part of the future of this project.
Well, and not just that, but where does AZ fit? Where does AZ fit once Hartle and Toyert come here?
Right. I mean, with the midfield injuries we have right now, like you and I could do a whole episode on just that topic.
Correct. But I'm just saying, like, where, like, it doesn't make for him as a player, it doesn't make sense because, as the season progresses, unless there's more crazy injuries, there won't really be minutes for him. So this is the best case for him, is to move to a team that maybe will have more opportunities for him to play.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the move. I'm just saying, like, they didn't move AZ. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at too. They did not move AZ because he and Carnell did not get along. Right.
Correct.
They did not. The reason they moved him is because they got a really good deal and he no longer really fit the vision for where this team is going. And if it was just the thing with Carnell, they would have kept him knowing that they were possibly about to make that move with Carnell.
And I think that's what the difference is with Sam right now. I think that's why Sam wasn't sold, is because they were on the fence with Carnell. I think had they won and then again followed up like tomorrow with a win at San Jose, I think, we're selling Sam. We're going to keep, we're turning the corner. We've got reinforcements coming. We don't need him. But I think with knowing that Carnell's leaving, and the added effect is if he can regain some form, he's going to drive his transfer value up for potential offseason transfer if it turns out that we don't need him. But honestly, our top two strikers coming to this year, we'd say we're Big Sam and Klaus, and I wouldn't at this point be heartbroken if both of them were gone in the offseason.
I will say Sam is out of contract at the end of the year. So, I mean, they could extend him. Like if he comes out and is the Sam that we saw at the end of last year, like they could offer him an extension and he might take it. Like without Carnell here, that might be something he's willing to do. Like that's, a thing of the past now. I do think that the loss of Nico has been kind of overstated. If you look at when Nico did really well, he did really well early with Klaus last year, and he did really well in Klaus's absence. But when Klaus and Sam came back, Nico's performance dipped, his results dipped. And so it's like, okay, yeah, but the back half of last year, he didn't really do anything. So
yeah, I felt like post elbow injury Nico was a little bit different.
Right. Yes, exactly. That elbow was a very,
he missed some time, and
changed.
he didn't really hit his stride again after that. I didn't feel like when he came back. But
that's a great
he also
point.
lost playing time. They had him playing in different positions. He wasn't really playing in the same role, and I think that's what cost him more than anything, was that once he finally came back, he was playing in a completely different position, playing in a different role, and
Was
that
he? I
didn't
thought he
allow
was
him to
still.
succeed. He played
I
at the
thought he
10 a
was.
lot, and he actually played outside mid a couple of times. And then when
I
he
don't
paired
remember
with
that.
Big Sam, he would ended up being like a up top right striker, which his best, he plays great in a two striker role where he can play off the other striker, kind of in the middle of the field, which is why
Yeah,
he played so well
he
with
and
Klaus.
Sam don't. Well, yeah, he and
And
Sam don't mix, but I don't. He was already kind of the 10 even when he played with Klaus, because like you said, he played kind
mhm.
of off of the other one. So like that didn't. I don't know. I think it was just he and Sam didn't really fit well. But even when he was with Klaus, I do think that elbow injury, maybe it was even like a mental thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well,
I
and
don't know.
Klaus was different when he came back. I mean, like Klaus
True.
had the really good game against KC, but I mean, Klaus hasn't been the same guy since his injury last year.
No, no. Well, I don't know. He had a pretty good September and August, because he had several games where he scored in last year. But either way, I think that's the point that I'm trying to build up to here is like, it is, even though it's only our second year, it's the end of an era, right? It's the end of our first coach already. I hope we don't make a habit of firing coaches at a year and a half. Granted, like you said, winning cures all. So like if it's not working out, move on. And that's why they did it now. Like there's 14 games left this year. That's more than enough points to salvage it and make it into the playoffs. You really probably just need to win. Well, you probably need to win half of them at least, maybe 8 of the 14, which is a tall order, but not impossible. So we'll see. John Hackworth is going to be the interim coach. He's been awesome everywhere he's been. He's been a great member of this organization since practically day one. Like, let's go.
Well, and I don't think Hackworth is your long-term answer. I don't think he wants to be your long-term answer. And I think there's a lot of
Right. It's
people out there.
clearly an interim thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there like, man, well, is he going to take it? And we've even had chats, and I'm like, I could see them offering him the job full time if he does really, really well. I just don't think that's what he wants.
Yeah. I mean, he's coached. He's
I could
coached
be wrong.
the national team, for the youth national teams.
He
Coached in
coached
the
Philadelphia
USL.
Union.
He coached
Was it
Philadelphia.
Union?
Yeah, it was the
For
Union.
like
Yeah.
two or 3 years.
Right. Like right before Jim Curtin, right?
Yeah, and then he moved from there to Louisville.
Right.
He had good lot of success, and he's had success everywhere he's been.
Yeah, like the guy can do it for sure. But I think he kind of likes the technical director role too. And I don't know. There's obviously the joke that like I made in our chat is like, obviously, we're doing this so we can go sign Jurgen Klopp, right? Like that would be amazing. But like clearly he's not going to be our next coach. But
I just want, like I said, long term, I just wonder what's next. I don't think in the way that Lutz works, unless somebody like a big guy, like a big name, very established coach is available, he's not going to make any moves till the off season, coaching wise, like permanently. And I think that's the best case scenario is you wait. But
right.
I do think that because of the way the European League falls, that there could already be a deal in place for somebody, even if it's not announced and that person's coaching, they could already be here signed and preparing to start next season. With along with Lutz. Even if they haven't moved here, right, they could be working with Lutz to work through what they need, what's going to happen. Because like I said, because the European League starts here in a few months before our season's over, there's a good chance if that's where he's pulling a coach from, that we're going to, and Lutz has shown time and time again that he knows that area very well. And I could see him pulling in somebody potentially before the European season starts, but not necessarily announce them until at the end of the season.
Right. I think whoever it is they hire, I think they're going to be thorough. I don't think and I think Lutz said that yesterday during the press conference. It would not surprise me if they try to get someone before the European seasons really start next month in August, because it's kind of hard for them to approve a coach leaving in the middle of the season. A lot of teams don't like letting their coaches leave in the middle of the season because obviously.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm not necessarily in any rush. I don't think they are necessarily in any rush. They know they want to get this hire right. That's good. That's what it should be. I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of our signings right. Cedric Toyert just started training today, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Could see him in the pictures of Berkey making the All-Star game announcement yesterday, which is great. Have not seen JGR come in yet, but it should be a quick visa. And then they announced today that Marcel Hartel has signed with us, which we knew was going to happen, but it's been kind of dragged out. I think it got delayed because of the stuff going on with Carnell. But they officially announced that today, which feels like a huge weight being lifted off, right? That we know we've got him, we know we've got Toyer. Those are two huge pieces at crucial positions that we've struggled with this year. So I don't know. I'm really excited for both of them.
I still, and I think it'll be interesting to see, and I think a lot of it's going to play into what happens with Sam as well. But I still think I see Toyer ending up as your striker with Hartel playing your 10, playing at the 10, which allows Leuven and Durkin to play as a 6-8 double pivot. Gives you Blom as a sub who can realistically be a late, 60 to 70th minute defensive sub pretty much anywhere. And I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. But again, time will tell. And I keep looking at things and I'm like, we just have to make it to this league's cup break. We got 4 games, but we have to actually get points out of them. And again, that's why Carnell was let go. We're not getting points, and we need points right now more than anything. And so I think the combination of losing at home and then giving up a 2-goal lead on the road, it sucks. And, like I said, I will forever be a Bradley Carnell fan. I think the guy's an amazing dude, and I wish nothing but the best for him. And he'll land on his feet, like you said. He's a good guy. People know he's a good coach. But I also don't want to minimize the results aspect of this, and it's a results-oriented business. And MLS is a lot like the NHL in that they tend to move through coaches rather quickly if the results aren't there. And I think that's what you're seeing here. And part of me would like to think, okay, well, it's the second season that this club has existed. And I wonder if last season had gone like this season's going, if both seasons were this way, if we would have if it'd be the same outcome, but the expectations were raised and they've seen what this team can be and what Carnell can coach and what they could do. And we weren't doing it anymore. And Lutz said as much in his presser.
Yeah. So it's the start of a new era, turning of a page, and it's sad, but I think it is the right move. If not now, at the end of the year, I think it was probably inevitable. And I know that they just extended him, but guys, an extension is really just based on what you had done so far. That's locking you down if things continue to do well. If things are not going well, that's a different story.
Extensions are protections for clubs, not for coaches.
Yes.
It's the same way for the Cardinals. The extension of Ollie was a protection. You and I ragged on it, whatever. But it's if the Cardinals do well under Ollie and he shows himself to be decent, they've got him locked up. On the flip side, if he isn't, they can still just cut him loose and pay the payout and buyout of those contracts are not prohibitive for these clubs and for these teams. And so that's the big thing. I know I normally close on a Kroenke piece, but it doesn't feel quite right closing on Kroenke today. So with that, Carnell, we wish you the best and good luck out there.